Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin and DK in the background. It is Thursday night, and we are here to talk about our Baltimore Ravens. The news never really stops at the nest, and the Ravens have been active in free agency. We're excited to talk about it. When honestly, Glenn, I didn't know if we thought that they were going to be taking this many visits and still out there doing as many things, but I also don't think, I didn't think it, but I also am not surprised by it because they're never going to not turn over every leaf. But we're here to talk about all of it and looking forward to it. Glenn, how you doing this evening, my friend?
Doing well. This cold weather, Jimbo.
Just go away.
Goodbye, dude. Good riddance. It's freezing. It's unbelievable. What's going on, B-Ray? Appreciate you coming out. Carla, appreciate you jumping in here. Sedarian as well. Thanks for joining us. Super active in free agency. And look, this is the way I look at like any visits, because visits don't mean signings. But what it does mean is that there's interest at adding to the position group. And you can kind of get a look to see of what type of player they want to add to the position group by the type of guy that they bring in for visits, because they're not bringing in guys for visits just for fun. Obviously, there's interest in their skill set. If nothing else, you can kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what the Ravens still think they need to add to the roster, both from a position standpoint and skill set standpoint. So, we're going to get into some visits. Also, a signing was made either yesterday or I think it was today. Either yesterday or today, they did add to the roster. So we'll go over that certainly. But I did want to start one place real quick, Jimbo, if I could. When we spoke last, we were talking about the signing of Kevin Zeitler and kind of the confusion around why it looked like it would have been such a bargain for the Ravens to grab that guy. But I was mistaken in how I was interpreting the signing. So that $4.2 million in dead cap money that is on the books right now for the Ravens, that money was already spent money. So that $4.2 million had to hit against the cap either this year, if he's gone or was able to sign a 1-year deal, or if they were able to add, let's say he did come back for the Ravens. Let's say the Ravens were able to sign for that same 6-year contract value that the Lions just got him for. They would have had to pay him the $6 million, but they still would have had to pay that $4.26 million because that's money already spent. It was just part of his last contract. And so the only way to get that down would be to either sign him to a multi-year deal where you could then spread that 4.26 over it, or add more void years to, again, spread that $4.2 million over those years. But it wasn't like they were only saving 1-point-something million by letting him play against him. I was incorrect there. So it would have been the same $10 million expense. It's just they could have spread that $10 million over a couple-year period. That was it. So I want to clear that up. I was mistaken.
Hey. We got to admit when we're wrong, Glenn. Just like when you lose to me in our upcoming draft picks, you just have to admit it, right?
Well,
it's like last year.
Oh, I won't have to worry about that. I'm listening to my son this year, and he predicted Zay, so I'm going to be listening to him.
He did.
I got an ear out. I'll be hear what he has to say. What's going on, Ken, Gideon, Jason?
Now I know. I'm gonna tell Cam. I'm gonna start.
Dude, just put a bad bug in his ear. Just put a 7th round projected guy in his ear all summer. Just keep. Hey, how's that James Johnson look? 7th round, possibly undrafted. I could see you doing that.
Oh, dude, I'm not above it. Are you kidding me? Yeah, absolutely.
I know what you're up to. And Sean says congrats on the upcoming addition to the fam. So
hey,
shout out
to
Sean Pisker.
Yeah, man. I think. Wait, isn't Sean?
He just had one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, you guys making babies out there, dude. You guys adding to the population.
Gotta do our part to multiply and replenish the earth.
That's right. But look, let's get into some signings here, Jimbo, and we're going to talk about the visits because there's some pretty well-known names coming in for visits here.
Yeah.
At a position that a lot of fans think is certainly a big need. But let's get into it. So the first is kind of a re-signing of sorts, a guy who started his career here before signing elsewhere and is now finding himself back at home. Linebacker Chris Board is back with the Ravens after he was originally here as an undrafted free agent and then spent some time. Let's see, where did he spend some time? With the New England Patriots. Whoa, what was that? just heard some really weird audio. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe that's just
It's
okay. There we go. Yeah. So he recently played for the Patriots. Most people remember Chris Board mainly as a special teams contributor. Did not spend a ton of time on the field on defense unless there was an injury, but was a big time special teams contributor. So
Yeah.
if nothing else, that'll help add to that room. And I'm who did they lose? Oh, Del'Shawn Phillips is a linebacker who was their leading special teams tackler last season. He signed elsewhere. So Chris Board, if nothing else, fills the void that Del'Shawn Phillips left, being our leading special teams tackler. And Chris Board was always a really good special teamer. So, add some linebacker depth, but also can bolster that special teams room.
Well, and I think that's what I was going to say, Glenn. I think that's an underrated piece of this is that we don't know. It's an open competition for whoever's playing next to Roquan at this point, right? And so now he's back. He's got some more experience. He's got some more tenure in the league. We'll see if he can fill the shoes to some certain extent. I'm not saying any of these guys are going to be PQ. I'm not going to disparage him like that. Or, look, I'm not talking bad about those guys either. They just haven't proven to be him yet. So we don't know what Simpson will be with a large sample size. Chris Board can come in and have an opportunity to at the very least compete for the role. And I think it's a role that gets guys paid. So I'd be competing pretty hard.
No doubt.
It's not too hard to look good next to Roquan these days, apparently.
That's a good point. He can elevate the play of those around him, and maybe Chris Board can benefit from that. But that's not the only signing that they.
No, I'm excited about this next one.
Are you?
No, I'm what?
Oh, dang. Okay.
Well, not after the pre-show conversation we had. I'm not excited.
Yeah, well, I can understand why you wouldn't be. I may have ruined it a little bit for you. I will admit that. But the Ravens did make another addition. They signed what?
James Jones?
Yeah, well, no, I think it's Josh.
Or Josh Jones.
Yeah, Josh Jones. But my computer's just acting crazy. It's just making me crazy. But as Jeff said it, shout out to Jeff Zrebick. They added a veteran offensive lineman, Josh Jones, who's got experience really all over the offensive line. This guy's played guard. He's played tackle. He's played most of his time with the Houston Texans. And again, played left tackle, left guard, as well as right tackle. So a guy who's been all over the place. Now and he's had moments where he's graded out well, and he's had times where he's played well. But there's one big issue with Josh Jones. He only played 14 snaps after week 3 of last season with the Texans, after he played 3 years with the Cardinals. And the reason being is because the guy's got some penalty issues, Jimbo. And just as a comparison, John Simpson, look, we had two of the 3 most penalized offensive linemen in the league, in Ronnie Stanley and John Simpson. They were number 2 and number 3. This guy gets more penalties than John Simpson, Jimbo. Just as a comparison, John Simpson averaged 1 penalty every 95 and a half snaps in his career. Conversely, Josh has averaged 1 penalty every 67 snaps throughout his career. And so if you thought John Simpson's penalties were an issue, Jimbo, wait till you get a look-see at Josh Jones.
So that's basically 1 penalty a game, right? Don't you think there's about 67 offensive snaps a game? I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, I'm sure it's right around that number. So he's good for 1 penalty a game.
And it really depends on the penalty, right? If it's a 5-yarder, okay. All right.
Right.
But those 15s can kill your drive, and a 10 can kill your drive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On that first, nothing worse than a first down holding penalty after you break like a 12-yard run.
So, and now it's 1st and 20.
Yeah, and it's just you already know it's done.
Yeah.
Like this drive's over, right? Like punt it.
We're at our own 10-yard line. It's 1st and 20. Not a good start.
No. So I'm hoping that I don't know.
It brings experience, and he's
depth,
like a McCary type player in the sense that. Look, it's always good because you only get a certain amount of actives every game. And if you can have a guy like McCary who you can make active and you go, okay, if our center goes out, McCary can go in. If our left guard goes out, McCary. Left tackle, McCary. Well, this is another guy who brings added flexibility. That way you can, in theory, have just 2 active backup offensive linemen, and you would have all your positions covered as long as not more than 2 guys go down.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's veteran depth. It's an opportunity to have it's a contingency plan if none of our draft picks or young guys in the building pan out as well, right? Instead of going to the basement, let's go get a guy now.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not super stoked about it because of the penalties, but I'm also not wallowing about it either. But look, let's talk about what everyone came here to talk about.
What's that?
All right, offensive linemen are cool, and you know what's funny, Gun? Because I'm the one on the show that apparently hates wide receivers. But
You do? Oh,
apparently,
is that what they're saying? Okay.
yeah, I don't know football. I don't care about wide receivers and all that stuff, which is fine.
Smart chat. I love it. They know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about.
That's hilarious. As Glenn nods in agreement with me during the show. No. But anyway, so we're here to talk about the two visits that the Baltimore Ravens are taking with two wide receivers.
Mhm.
The first one that DK threw up here is Josh Reynolds, of course, the Lions free agent wide receiver, is on his way to visit tomorrow.
Yep.
That's exciting stuff. I mean, Josh has been a relatively reliable guy. I think he had 2 seasons where he was a little banged up, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But outside of that, since he's come in the league, he's been reliable, a reliable like number 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Another depth guy. But I think that my take is that there's a fit there because we have a number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think we have a pretty bona fide number 1. We have a number 2, Bateman, who's going to be chomping in his best case scenario, chomping at the bit at that number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Him and the ideal scenario would be that him and Jose get to split, catches, right? It's not a Keenan Allen type situation, kind of like we talked about last year, right? But that Bateman is really pushing him for every opportunity he can get. So, yeah, I think that fit wise, it makes sense. What's your take on the Josh Reynolds visit?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you guys remember when we were looking at that list of free agents, I'm not going to toot my own horn too much, but I did bring up this exact name, Josh Reynolds, as a likely guy. So, yeah, I mean, just keep listening. You know what I mean? Just keep the ears open, ladies and gentlemen, because I'll keep you informed here. No, but look, he seems to fit what they need. He's 6'3". He's 195 pounds. He's a guy who can work that intermediate part of the field. Most of his work was 10 yards plus down the field this past season. He averaged 15.2 yards per catch last year, 13.3 for his career. So he's a guy that can certainly move the chains. He's had quite a few touchdowns. Last year had 5 tutties, 19 on his career. So he's a guy who can be a red zone threat. He can work the intermediate game. And look, I think he would be a great possession receiver ad. And you didn't mention Nelson Aguilar. At least I don't think you did.
No, yeah.
If him and Nelson are your 3-4, that's a pretty damn good 3-4 right there.
Yeah, it's a nice group.
It's a nice group. And he adds size to the room, which we had size with pass catching tight ends, but we didn't have a ton of size at the wide receiver position. So he certainly would help there. I think he's reliable in his hands. He may not be may not be one of the fastest guys in the league, but at his size, with his stride, he can certainly still stretch the field. If you're telling me he's going to be guarded by their third or fourth corner or possibly a safety. So I think he would be a nice add. The question is the finances. What type of money is he hoping to get? Does he want to be paid like a 1 or 2? If that's the case, then this is probably not his spot. But if he's willing to play for a 3 or 4 receiver salary, I think he would be an excellent addition.
Yeah, no, I find myself in agreement. I think that, like you said, the size is a nice dimension, an opportunity for Lamar to do some underneath work. In, like you said, a possession receiver, and then another body in the red zone that he can count on. So yeah, if he has a Nelly type impact like Nelly did last year, hey man, I think that's a good signing. But there's another name.
Oh, hang on. He also just want to say this on intermediate throws, Jimbo. Last year, 21 catches. 375 yards, 5 touchdowns, had a 142.3 passer rating when thrown to.
There you go.
It's pretty good.
And I think some of that, I mean, all credit to him. I think a lot of that has to do with he's a big body receiver. I mean, not only is he tall, he's 6'3". I'd be interested to know what the wingspan is as well. And he's got reliable hands. So I think that he's a perfect fit physical archetype for that, right?
Yep.
But there's another guy that's coming into town, Glenn, that I think a lot of people would argue might have a higher ceiling and might get some people more excited. Cowboys free agent Michael Gallup is scheduled to visit today. That's going on as we speak. No, I'm kidding. It probably already happened. I'm sure he's probably down at Jimmy's Seafood right now. Or Eric DeCosta accidentally locked the door in his office and threw the contract on the desk and says, sign this dang thing, right?
Maybe.
You never know. But yeah, Michael Gallup, I think, is a guy that, he's been banged up. We've seen him play for the Cowboys and had 2 big seasons early on. I think 19 and 20 were big seasons for him. 19 at 1,000+ yard season. Feels like a long time ago, but since then they've kind of moved on from him. CeeDee Lamb has taken off, and they've added some depth in the room. But I'm interested in this one too, because there's a decent amount of upside here if he can just stay healthy. What's your take on Gallup, man?
Yeah, I think his first 3 years of his career, he had certainly a ton of promise, but he had the injury that kept him out for a lot of 2021. And I just don't know if he's the same player anymore. He's 6'1", 198 pounds. Like Jimmy mentioned, he went over 1,100 yards in 2019, including 6 touchdowns to go along with it, and followed that up with a pretty good season in 843 yards with 5 tutties. But since then, just hasn't had the health as well as the opportunity, because like Jimmy said also, that they've added to that room. Dallas has invested in pass catchers, bringing over Brandon Cooks, obviously signing CeeDee Lamb. And then they pick up, who's the big tight end that they picked up who was just making every catch last year?
I don't know, dude.
Oh, man. He's good, though. Dallas's tight end, he's a heck of a player. But they got a lot of pass catchers.
Oh, who is that young kid?
Man, he was.
Is it Jake Ferguson?
Yes, Jake Ferguson. Yes.
Yeah, he's
a lot of good tight ends, because certainly Detroit had their stud come in this year too. Probably both of them are from Iowa, right? And Iowa is just tight end university. It's
most likely
absolutely insane. But I don't know. To me, he's the more risky pick of the two.
Definitely.
Now maybe he does have the higher ceiling. If he's completely healthy, maybe. But to me, I think the safer guy is Reynolds. And if you want a little more risk, you go with the talent and maybe the possible better upside in Michael Gallup. But Gallup scares me a little bit, I will say, just because of the injuries and the fact that he hasn't really looked like himself since the injury.
Yeah, no. The only thing I was going to ask you is, do you think there's room in the budget for both? Is that even, you think that's an interest for the Ravens and a possibility?
For both? I don't know, man. I don't know if there's interest from them in both, because that means one of them is going to be your 5. And does either one of these guys want to sign up to be the 5 when you have to also remember that there's Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely? So really, aren't you more of a 7? And do you want to be the 7? So I think it's just one or the other, or neither. But the good news is I don't think either one of them would stop them from being interested in a rookie in the draft if one were to come available that they like his skill set. Adit says, would you rather have Josh Reynolds or Gallup? To me, I've already answered. It sounds like Josh Reynolds.
Rather have Josh Reynolds. I usually don't like the idea of taking the safer pick, because it's more exciting. Like, let's be honest, more exciting to take the guy with the higher ceiling. But I think that outside of just being a safer pick, I think schematically, Josh Reynolds might be something that we need. In that you talked about the intermediate game. And, I think we've wanted Bateman to be a part of that. But we're not sure what that looks like yet for Bateman. And he'll be our biggest wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken.
For sure.
It's been a while since we've had a 6'3" big guy, which isn't a requirement, but it's nice to have different variations out there.
For sure. You want to go, it's like golf. You want to have all your clubs available.
Right. Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Yeah. So I think I would agree with you. However, I think Gallup would be exciting too. Like, I wouldn't be disappointed by either. I'm glad that they're out there. This is funny, Glenn. You might want to, I guess we are recording this, but you might want to let the folks know this is real. I'm about to say this. I'm glad the Ravens are out there looking around when it comes to wide receiver market, right? Like, it's a good thing to be doing, especially at this spot, as far as the money that will need to be paid and the role that these guys are going to be playing. I think this is a good place for them to be doing it. Now, I wholeheartedly disagree that they need to be doing it in the first round of the draft.
Yeah.
I think that's a different story. But right now in free agency, I think it's a great spot to do it. Let's go bargain shopping, baby. Let's go back to REI. You know, in REI, they have the 100-day return policy. You can go to the back where the people have returned the stuff. You know, you can get on, dude. That's where I live, baby.
That's right.
You know, let's go do it.
Yeah. I think it, to expect them to do much more is just an unrealistic expectation. So this is their sweet spot. I expect them to sign one of these guys. I'm hoping it's Josh Reynolds, but I'll be open and embrace Michael Gallup if he becomes a Raven as well. And that's a pretty good four, a group of four, whether it's Zay, Bateman, Aguilar, and Reynolds, and Michael Gallup. That's a pretty good four when you consider what the tight end group looks like. I think that's a good starting point. But look, don't be surprised if Eric DeCosta, again, apparently what I'm hearing is the top 3 wide receivers are in a group of their own. And then numbers 4 through 15, you can just jumble them up and pick one because they're all relatively similar in how they're being ranked. It's very hard to rank the 4th through the 15th best receiver in this upcoming draft. So what that tells me is that there's a chance that the guy the Ravens really like or think has a high ceiling and maybe just needs some time to develop, maybe they think, okay, we can get that guy in round 3 or round 4 or even round 5 because that's not the guy that everyone else wants. They all want this guy, or they all think that these guys are more valuable. And this is the guy we kind of covet. So even if they do end up getting one of these guys, I still think there's a chance they could be active at wide receiver in the draft. Just not with pick 30. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Not with pick 30.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, people can say what they want about that opinion, but I think it just makes too much sense.
And I did see another mock today that had, once again, the Ravens going offensive line. I've only really seen 2 position groups being mocked to them, and that's offensive linemen, and I've seen some cornerback being mocked to them. So yeah, that's the two positions. And I think Daniel Jeremiah was the one who linked corner, which he tends to kind of have a finger on the pulse of what Baltimore does.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because like I said before, this could be Marlon's last year in purple.
Especially if he has another injury-ridden season. Yeah.
Right. And so because either way, he's going to be a guy that's aging in his position that's going to be looking for new money. And I don't know if the Ravens, I can understand where there's what's the word? Conflicting interests or contradictory interests there, right? Because the Ravens they're not looking to be in the market to pay an aging corner new money with what the corners are getting paid today.
Exactly. It's not cheap.
So the only way I think he stays is he takes a real friendly haircut because somebody else is going to give Marlon money.
Yeah.
I mean, if he has a decent season, right?
Certainly if he can show he stays healthy. Yeah.
I know a lot of first rounders that get the first deal. There's guys that are lifers here and they find ways to make it work. But I just feel like we saw a few of those guys leave when Joe was paid. Right. And I think we'll see the same thing with Lamar, right? Lamar's getting paid. And with that, there's going to be some tough ones, it's going to be tough ones to walk out the door. I'll never forget the day I heard Anquan Bolden headed out the door. I
know, dude. That was devastating. How about Haloti Ngata?
Yeah. You know what I mean? And like
what? Yeah. Those ones hurt. Yeah. But you have to be prepared if you're an NFL fan. That's just is what it is.
And the league is even more transactional today than it was then. Players move all over the place because they throw a hissy fit, right? i.e. Orlando Brown. So it's just kind of the way that goes. Not saying Marlon would do that, but the point is that it's just going to reach an impasse, right? Where like he's coming up on 30, he's wanting his last big hit of money, and we get it, but it just might not line up with the Ravens and their plans.
And to look, guys, we're not saying he's a free agent in 25. What we're saying is that it's the first opportunity where the Ravens could actually save money by releasing him if he's not willing to take some sort of restructure, pay cut.
Right.
If he doesn't perform up to the contract. If he performs up to the contract, the Ravens could choose to continue to let him play under it. But next year, if he's cut, they can save $12.5 million. Now they'll incur $12.5 million in dead money as well, but they can still save $12.5 million in cap space, which could be just too attractive for them.
Right.
To pass up. So
so for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that clarification there. But no, that's a good point. Yeah, so corner is an interesting one. I still don't think they go corner in the first round. I think that it's the corner is a problem 12 months from now. This is the way I see it, right? We got a problem today, and that's the offensive line.
Yeah, and then speaking to the offensive line, Jimbo, I was a bit, I don't know if shocked or surprised is quite the term, but maybe of when this apparently occurred. Morgan Moses did an interview. He talked to some New York media, and he talked about the injury that we all knew he had. We knew he was nursing an injury. We knew it was a pec injury. What we didn't know is that he tore his pec in week 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to get your take on this because he tears his pec in week 4. He still guts it out and ends up playing the majority of the season despite the torn pec. He shared some time with different guys, but pretty much played the majority of the season with a torn pec muscle. And so going up against TJ Watt and Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, doing so with virtually one arm, which he talked about was fun, obviously sarcastically. But when you see the fact that he played that long with a torn pec and was still about a middle of the pack tackle league wide, is it more surprising now to hear that the Ravens let him go for not a big price tag when it comes to tackles in the NFL, knowing that just by him likely getting healthier, he'd definitely be healthier, that his performance has got to go up from middle of the pack tackle play? Like, does that make you more surprised that they were willing to trade him away for virtually nothing?
Yeah, it does. The Ravens must have a lot of faith in their ability to develop, identify, and they're putting a lot of pressure on the O-line coach, on the front office to find the guys, on the young guys that we already have in the building, and the front office to go out there and sign vets like we saw today to get this done, because I just don't know how you have so much turnover on the offensive line and expect consistency, and not just consistency, but improvement to the offense. If we believe that, Lamar Jackson is the heartbeat of the offense, well, then the offensive line is like the lungs, right? Like you what can you do without those guys? So to have such turnover, you've really got to nail it, hit this thing on the head. And that's a surprising one. And they must know something that we don't, or just must have more confidence based on, they must know something that we don't, whether it's the guys internally, the guys in the draft, something. I don't know, man. Yeah. It's just a perplexing one for me, for sure. After Zeitler and then Moses, like, these things to me aren't byproducts of Lamar's contract.
Right. Yeah.
I think that there's other things that you could say, but I don't see this being a byproduct of Lamar's contract. One could argue that they would rather have that I don't know where I'm at in this argument yet, but if somebody asked you, Glenn, would you have rather kept Zeitler and Moses and not signed Derrick Henry? I don't think that one would immediately answer that question to just sign Derrick Henry. Like, that's a thinker.
Yeah. Oh, especially because of the Zeitler thing. Yeah. Because he was very good for us.
Yeah. So, and the money is comparable to a certain extent as far as, what, those two combined in comparison to what Henry's contract will be. So DK talks about this a lot. Like, why sign Henry if the offensive line is going to be poor?
Exactly.
You got to double down.
It makes me think they, like, not only like they must know something, and they must be getting confidence from somewhere that they can not only rebuild it, but like you said, get better.
Right.
So, I mean, look, I read a story. They talked to Voorhees, and I think Mel Kiper even talked about him and said having him is like having an additional second round pick, is the way he basically phrased it. And Voorhees himself said he's healthy. He's just marking off days on the calendar, getting ready for OTAs. He can't wait. He's chomping at the bit. So it's like, I get what happened at left guard. Like, we haven't even talked about John Simpson. Like, we're okay with that. We're like, yeah, we understand. But that doesn't help me with my right tackle concerns. And so, man, it's just like, wow, they are very confident they can replace them. And look, we're not saying the sky is falling. We're just like, what the heck is their plan, and where are they getting this confidence that they can just totally rebuild this to a better version of what we had last year?
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see. But I mean, that's part of what we're here for, right? Like, that's going to be the exciting part in this offseason. It was certainly drama-filled last year, but on draft day, to see the culmination of the Lamar contract and then to see the Zay draft, to see the OBJ thing a little bit before that happened, the Nelly. So like to see this all happen in the offseason was a lot of fun. And if you're not, obviously people like wide receivers more than offensive linemen, but it's going to be really exciting to see when those balls drop, what happens, and who the guys are, like who they, like you said, where's the confidence coming from, who they're picking in the early part of the draft. How crazy would it be, Glenn? How much would you be sweating if, say, rounds 1 and 2 still no O lineman?
Oh, dude, I would be panic.
Out of your mind, just absolute panic.
Unless something changes between now and April 25th when the draft occurs, then heck yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. So like, if not all being the same,
dude, full panic.
Right. Well,
because there's no point in having your highly paid quarterback and very highly paid running back when you can't block for them too.
Man. And see, that's the thing. This is the emotional roller coaster of it all, because imagine doing that and then they come out and they hit like they did on Orlando Brown in the 3rd round again. And like unbeknownst to us, right? Yeah. Because at that point, 3rd to 7th round guys, unless you are, your full-time job every single day, all the time is to analyze these guys, them well enough. But like, I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh yeah, the 7th round tackle out of Tulsa University, I know him. I know his game intimately. So at that point, we're just holding on to hope that they hit like Orlando Brown, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you can't count on that, obviously. And to go young is okay in a sense, but you typically don't go young with that many positions. You'll try and sprinkle in youths and surround them with veterans that can help them just from a teaching and tutelage standpoint, but also literally help them by swinging protection their direction. It's going to be hard to do that when if your whole right side is rookies and you have a left guard who's a rookie starter. Again, when I say rookie, I don't just mean like literally it's their first year, but Voorhees is a rookie next year. He's a starter. You can call him a second-year player because he was in meetings all you want, but he's a rookie starter. So now you're going to have the shaky Stanley at left tackle, who, let's be honest, could be gone any moment. Like, he could be out, and then you have a young left tackle. So you really only have your most veteran guy that you can count on is Tyler Linderbaum, who's been here 2 years. I mean, that's just a lot to ask, man. It's a lot to ask to have that kind of turnover when offensive line, you need cohesiveness and you need, I don't know. It's risky. Not to say I don't have confidence in these guys, because I certainly do have confidence in the front office, but man, it's risky. It's awfully risky. Saya says, Marlo better retire here. I can't see him nowhere else. Look, we saw Brett Favre play for the Vikings.
Yeah.
We saw Emmitt Smith running for the Cardinals. We saw Johnny Unitas. Well, I didn't, but in highlights, playing for the Chargers. We saw, you go down the list. So, yeah, it would
Tom
be
Brady,
sad.
for goodness gracious.
Ed Reed was a Jet.
And a Texan, right?
And a dirty Texan. Yeah, I can't believe it. So, Marlon would be surprising, but not any more surprising than Suggs. And
I don't, I don't think you can, I wouldn't be mad at Marlo either, because the thing is that if the majority of the guaranteed money is paid, then his agent's going to say, hey, Baltimore, what assurance can you provide my client for the future, right? And they're going to say, none. You know what I mean? You can understand the Ravens side of that, and then you can also understand Marlon's side of it, because he wants to get that last contract before he's plus 30.
Yep.
Because then after that, he's probably playing 1-year deals.
Exactly. Oh, he's definitely, yeah.
So you can understand it. It's nothing that I would be upset about either side for.
No.
But I agree. I would love to see Marlon retire here, but it's just going to have to work out. And
how many players do you remember? What, J.O., Ray Lewis, Marshall Yanda? Who else? There ain't many.
Yeah.
It's just not that type of league anymore with free agency, unfortunately.
No, and you can't be mad at a guy for turning down the money.
No.
Because I know I sure wouldn't.
No.
Until my services are invaluable, I'm going to the highest bidder.
Yeah, unless I know that I'm going to be miserable there, and the margin is right. We're talking.
But if Baltimore's saying none, and the other team's saying 3 years, whatever million,
see ya.
Yeah, right.
I can't say I'm any different. Devin says Likely and Andrews need to help fill receivers roles, and they certainly will.
Yeah.
But
I'm not worried about this because we don't have, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Glenn, but we don't
No,
have, who was our OC before Monken? Oh my gosh. Greg Roman. Greg Roman's not our OC. Monken's done this successfully in the past with two tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about this. I think that they'll both be able to eat. So I think they'll fill, Devin, to your point. I think they'll fill some of those wide receiver roles that you're kind of talking about. I think we'll see. I think we did last year. We saw Likely split out wide, and we've seen it before with Mark as well. So, yeah, expect that. I think that will certainly happen. And that's also why I think Glenn and I aren't overly concerned about the wide receiver room as a whole. Because if you look at the pass catchers, what did you say, Glenn? Like 6 out of 7 top
7 of 8,
catchers?
I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what are you talking about here? Other news as well. I don't know if you saw this. It's kind of, it is what it is. Odell Beckham, of course, is planning on visiting with the Dolphins. The Dolphins are weird to me. It seems like they never run out of money. I don't, you know what I mean?
They are kind of strange, yeah.
You know, it's like how many big names do you have on your roster? Like, think about the guys, like they got Chubb, they got names. They got, obviously Tyreek Hill, and yeah, dude, they got names
Waddle
over there.
But a lot of those guys are young, like Achane, he's super young. Now they did let who's the D tackle who just went to
Wilkins, right?
Christian Wilkins, man. That's
who do you get paid by again? The Raiders?
Dude, the Raiders. Him next to Max Crosby. Whew.
Yeah. So they've certainly let some guys walk, but McDaniel doesn't care about, or McDaniel? Is it McDaniel? Yeah. I always get McDaniel. McDaniel doesn't care about defense.
Well, I just don't get why because typically if you look at their roster, they had 2 of the top, probably the 2 fastest players in the whole league with Hill and Waddle. Cedric Wilson Jr. is right up there with them. Achane actually might be faster than all of them once it's all said and done because he hit the top speed last year. It just seemed like speed. And Odell may have been in that group at some point early in his career, but not anymore. I mean, he still has some bursts and still has some explosiveness. We saw that.
And he's got the hands. I mean, we know that.
He's got the hands, but does he have the game-breaking speed anymore? I don't think so. Yeah. But maybe he fills another role. I just want to interested to see what the contract value is going to be, because it's like, is this guy still commanding double digits?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'd be asking myself.
What's up?
I'd be like, dang, do I really want Miami Odell on my team? Odell's a good dude. What I'm saying is that, like, that's just a lot. That's a lot in your face all the time. You know what I'm saying? The attention that would bring the team.
Oh, well, also the distractions that he'll have to deal with.
You're right. So, I mean, not saying that he's like
he's an older guy, though, now. He's got a young daughter. I think those days are behind him. But I know what you're saying.
30, Glenn.
Well, yeah, but he's a family. He's got a kid now. I mean,
yeah, but he ain't old now. Don't turn me into a dinosaur now.
He's older. Okay. He's not 22 renting the yacht for the playoff prep.
Hey, but what I'm saying is, though, you look at like what's his name, Michael Irvin. All these guys getting the plug. Look, Miami will turn back the clock on time.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
It'll make you want to be young, is what I'm saying.
True. That's a good point. Let's see. Don C. Appreciate it. As always, Don, he says, all the EDC and Harbs haters will hate this, but they have to have a plan with the O-line. They better. Sure. I want Henry to have all the fat boys. Great show. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They have to have a plan. It's just scary because we don't know the plan. That's all we're saying. Like we certainly trust what we have as front office guys, and I think those guys will do a good job of putting an offensive line. I can't imagine when they constantly say you start with the big guys up front. You win in the trenches first. You can't say all this and then put a makeshift piece together offensive line in front of your highest paid, 2 highest paid offensive players.
That's what I'm saying. Don't treat us like we're dummies.
Right.
Don't roll.
I just wish I knew the plan, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm with you, Glenn. But look, that's the fun of it this offseason. That's exactly why you guys got to stay tuned in.
That's a good point.
Exactly why you guys got to stay tuned in. Glenn, that's all I had to get off my chest today. I don't know if you got more.
That's it for me, Jimbo. That is it.
But we're excited. Look, like we said, the Ravens are still active. 2 wide receivers coming in for all you guys who are wanting receivers. Scratching the itch here with, would you rather have Gallup? Would you rather have Reynolds? Let us know what your thoughts are. And we'll be back next week, of course. I'm sure there'll be some new news. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great evening.
See you.